All right. So Daniel is currently a blockchain tech lead at the Austrian crypto startup Bitpanda. So it's about 700 employees, last valued at $4 billion. So prior to this, Daniel was a data scientist. In fact, we actually met in London doing the same amazing masters in data science. Daniel was the one that introduced me to the world of crypto. I had no idea what a Bitcoin was or what crypto was before I met Daniel. And very quickly after meeting Daniel, I knew all about it. And Daniel is a board member of the Bitcoin Austria nonprofit. And you've been involved in crypto since 2013. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Good to see you again.
For sure. So, first question is: can you share with us just how you got interested in crypto, like how you first heard about it and how you got exposed to it? Because 2013 is fairly early.
Yeah, so I actually have like a nice story for that. I had like in 2012, 13, it was around. I was still like studying, and I went for half a year because I had like time between my bachelor and master to go abroad. And I went to South America. So I went to Colombia to learn a bit of Spanish and like to do some like work there at the university actually. And like during that time I only booked a one-way trip, so I had to get back home somehow. And like the trip back I thought I would get actually was um, from Rio de Janeiro. So actually like the point was I had to get to Rio at the end. And I think 3 months in of the six, I was thinking, okay, let me from this small town I'm in book the one airplane that goes a day, and like just that I have it booked for the trip home. So I went to the homepage, right, entered my data. It was a very like shoddy homepage, and then at the end of the process, it said Visa card denied because you need a Colombian Visa card. And I was like, what? There's like a difference between like different Visa card networks. So I was like, okay, what the hell? I still have time. I still had time. So the natural thing for me was, okay, let's just ask my friends, and somebody will pay it. I'll give them the money. And then I started realizing that all the like good friends, right, they speak many languages, they studied and so on. They lived with me there. They had no credit card, which is fine, but they didn't even have a bank account. So you could also have a bank account. So then I was really getting like into the thing like, why don't they have bank accounts? And then I realized, okay, like I earn like $400, but it costs like $10 a month to at least have it, or sometimes even like 20 or 30. So then you pay like 10% of your monthly salary for this. So that's why like only one person in the family has a bank account, and then they share it. And even they travel internationally, right, without having a bank account. And it's insane for me. So I ended up paying it by like having the father of a friend like paying it, and I gave him money in cash, Colombian pesos, and it was like very. It took actually 2 months for me to figure out how to pay this, and in that 2 months, I was thinking like, okay, there has to be some startup, right, that has like a tool like TransferWise or something that can like I can plug it in and they pay that somehow for me. And I was searching all those tools, and there I found Bitcoin, and I found the white paper, and it's I'm like, yeah, this would make sense, but of course nobody accepts it, and that's how I dropped into it, because then I had time to research it and understand what it is, and was like, oh yeah, it actually makes sense, like for me and my friends to pay each other like with that. And sometimes we literally paid each other in like those phone minutes, like from like other like countries, and it was ridiculous. So I was like, oh yeah, like Bitcoin. And so I like started to get into it, like on like mine a bit like of other coins on my laptop, whatever that was. Um, and yeah, that basically was my like deep dive. And when I came back home, like I tried to tell people like on the like from afar, like that, oh, I found something interesting that I find super cool, and nobody cared. Like nobody from family like was remotely interested. And when I came back home, I found like 3 4 other people, like they just founded Bitcoin Austria in 2011, and they just did like workshops here and there, like and events for like as a non-profit about this topic. And it was like the first time I found other people that said like, okay, you're not crazy, this is actually like it's interesting. Like people that cared about it. It was very very satisfying. It took me half a year to find like the first person who cared about it. And yeah, that's kind of my story arc. And like I stayed with Bitcoin Austria and moved more into the tech area, and then became like even started working now in the area after like nearly 10 years soon. So crazy
So,
long actually.
Yeah, that's incredible. And it's really cool that you got exposed to it because you're like this. You kind of saw this need and this real pain point, like buying a bus ticket or a plane ticket taking 2 months. Um,
Yeah.
and yeah, this was
And I was always like, I also pitched it totally different back then. Said to people like, right, it's instant, it's completely free. And because that's kind of how it was, it showed up immediately. I didn't understand confirmation, so stuff like that. So it didn't care about waiting. There was basically no fee because like Satoshis weren't worth anything. Um, and like all the old pitches don't really hold up anymore. It changed a lot. Um, but it's still interesting to look back at like old slides even I made back then and stuff.
I mean, I remember even when because we met in 2016, and I remember the day we were studying. I think it was like probably for a machine learning exam or something. And like you were refreshing your laptop, like F5, F5, F5. Like, what is this guy doing? He's like, Bitcoin's about to cross $1,000. And I was like, who cares?
I
um,
was so excited.
and you were, and it was incredible. And then you were. I remember because, and this is a story I share sometimes. Um, where like it crosses $1,000, you're like, all right, we got to celebrate. I'll buy you a burrito. And so the joke I always make is like, I got exposed to crypto in 2016, and my friend probably made a decent amount of money, and I got a burrito out of it.
Yeah, it wasn't like right for a student. It was a lot for like now that I've more entered real life. You go like, yeah, actually, I was quite poor back then.
Exactly.
Uh,
And so you did a master's in data science, and I think you do a few, you get a few roles in Python development or data science. But really, I'm really curious about like in 2021, you joined Bitpanda as a blockchain engineer, right? And then within a year, you become tech lead. I'm curious about the first part. Like, what does a blockchain engineer do?
so I thought about this also before the interview because it's like kind of like the data science side. I mean, I guess we talk about data science afterwards. It's like not very well defined. It's like a very like it's kind of like saying like an area and then saying like an engineer at the end and it doesn't really define what it is. So like there are very many different positions in the space. Some are more like, okay, you're a protocol engineer, you engineer the peer-to-peer networking of Bitcoin nodes or like Ethereum nodes or something. Then there are like smart contract devs, and then there are like kind of, so that's why I think the engineer part fits us maybe even like different or more, because we are more the like cross-functional like Python engineers. So what we do at Bitpanda is like we integrate new coins. So if you can imagine, if you do a Bitcoin deposit or you withdraw a Bitcoin, then our code runs, and the same goes for like other networks. So like from Solana to Polygon and Ethereum and so on. And they all work quite differently. So you wouldn't, I guess from the outside you wouldn't imagine that, but from the inside, right, they try to differentiate each other very much. And this also means we have to build them in like very differently. You have to care about the security a lot, and yeah, so that our job is very much like a Python-based job. We do a lot of RPC calls, you can imagine, to like blockchain nodes, and try to either make sure that like a deposit is valid and like very secure, or to like sign our own like transaction like super secure without like any other like service seeing a key or something, and then like pushing it to a blockchain and giving people their money out, so to say. And yeah, this is also like in some coins, we also have to really care about frequency here because we have a lot of transactions. Um, and then like that they don't fall over each other, so to say. There is like a limit also that the blockchain accepts from you. So then you have to optimize and optimize. And the more chain is used, the more you get into it also as a company to like, yeah, get the process more correct.
Okay, that makes sense. And so this, I don't know if this is confidential to Bitpanda, but let's say for exchanges in general, let's call them like centralized exchanges. Um,
Mhm.
when let's say I'm buying a Bitcoin, is it, or if you're trading coins, do you trade between individuals, or is there like a pool? Does the startup have a pool of like of funds, or is there a combination of both? Just in general, let's say.
So that's like different products on a centralized exchange. I think all of the big exchanges, so Binance, Kraken, we have like different products, and there is like the brokerage products, which is mostly it's like this instant like exchange idea where you get like a price and then you like accept the price, and that's basically against the exchange. So you don't really trade with like a other person directly, but you trade with the exchange. So we quote you a price, and you accept that price, and we give you the other coins, and that's basically it. And then there are like the kind of exchanges where you also as a user, right? You have to now understand liquidity, like how that works. Like if you move a lot of money, you can't just like say yes because it will actually change the price. So you have to look at different one exchanges. And we also have that kind of product, like for us it's called Bitpanda Pro, or like if you know like the Binance main interface, like this is also very much like those kind of exchanges. So there you actually trade against other people, where every like order is kind of a limit order that like another person can accept, and we are basically just the facilitator in between. For Bitpanda, I think actually like most people like use the moment like exchange part, like it's very easy because we are like a very user friendly exchange. So we have a lot of like early users that are starting out and want like a very easy product to use. And yeah, I think this is what like a lot of people care more about than like about the like big trading interfaces, at least for us at the moment. But yeah, maybe it's also changing a bit. The more educated people get in this space, the more they want to like have control over things, and then they switch maybe.
Got it. And so I was thinking back about kind of how you define, just to circle back to like the role of a blockchain dev. Um, and like, is my mental model correct of thinking that it's like software engineering meets blockchain?
Yeah, pretty much. It's like right. It's I feel like in the data science side, it would be more closer to the data engineer, where you have like this pipeline of like a lot of data that you need to process somehow, and then you have to like with an added layer of like so yeah, you have to keep the data secure on like the one end, but on the other end it's money. So it's like even for companies, right, it's even like way more scary because like the tech vector is bigger. So it's also like a lot of security thinking, I would say, that's included there. So you have to understand like if you sign a transaction, if you make a smart contract on a chain, like is it secure? Like could somebody else like defraud you and like break your system? And uh, if you have like a leakage, you have like notifications, right? Like you have like immediate like stop mechanisms to like not lose like money. Um, so there's a lot of like details that go into it, and especially because we support a lot of chains and they're all like different, they like support different updates. You really have to stay on top because an update could really right, if you misunderstand what it's doing, also like lose your funds in the end. So yeah, we always tread carefully in that space. I think with data science, right, you also tread carefully because you don't want to waste GPU resources and like wait like 2 more hours. So it's more like the time frame that like annoys you, I guess, um, for like a result to see if that was smart or not. But here it's more the like okay, immediately you see nothing, but like you don't want to be like okay, everything is empty immediately, like hacked exchange at the end. So like you really try to make things as secure as possible.
Yeah, that's fair. I read about from time to time, and less now, to be honest, though, like about hacked exchanges. And I guess yeah, the stakes are much higher when you're dealing with currencies.
The attack vector. There was a funny meme recently for like all it's not exchanges, right? Actually, most of the things get hacked are smart contracts at the moment, I feel. And there was a meme that said basically this had this flying cars and everything, and said if VCs keep pushing like new bridges, then this is how North Korea looks like in 10 years. Because there's this like idea that North Korea hacks like a lot of DeFi protocols and like do that like professionally. So
Fair enough. And so for maybe someone who doesn't know what like doesn't fully it doesn't have anyone that they know that's a blockchain engineer, like can you run us through like what a typical day as a blockchain dev would look like?
yeah, so it really depends what you're working on, right? It's kind of like an engineering job after all. So you have your tickets. We use a Scrum kind of like setup with like a Kanban board and stuff, and yeah, you work on your tickets that can be sometimes it's like integrating a new coin. So sometimes you're really focused for 1-2 months to like integrate a new network. So you try to understand like how it works, how the signatures work. Like you make a tool like to like sign stuff offline, then to sign it like kind of in a hot like sense. Like it might work a bit different. So you really like kind of get into the coin. Sometimes you also contact the developers. I think that's always very practical to like understand how it works. So you're kind of becoming like a small expert, at least on right on the transfer function. Like there are mostly like now smart contracts and everything, which you maybe not learn so much about, but at least for like the main concept, you have to learn about it. And this usually takes us 2-3 months. So it's like 1 or 2 people mostly like on it. And then right, they discuss things with people like me. I'm a tech lead now, also like in the sense of like structuring this, like making sure that it's secure enough, like that we understand like how it works actually and not just assume stuff. I think that's yeah, that was more like a monthly question. I know I didn't fully answer your day to day, so let's go a bit in a day. I think we have a daily stand up at the in our area. We have like a lot of people are remote, so like in our area we are 35 people, I think, and most of them are like all over Europe and one even Dubai. So we are like just doing everything on Google Meets and stuff. Um, then we sometimes we have those refinements, right, where we refine our backlog and like separate out new tickets, who wants to do what, who gets into it. A lot of side things, side quests come in though, like in that area, which is like, okay, somebody found something that could be vulnerability, right? Then we treat it like very, very fast. Or we learn like, okay, we send something out and the transaction sometimes fails and it costs us money. Like, okay, something we have to treat immediately. We also like run our own nodes. That's always the first step actually of integrating something. You have to make sure how the node works and like run the node. And like they are also not always stable because some nodes are like very like resource heavy and the networks are not always stable. So you also have like a channel just annoying you sometimes with like, oh, there's a failed transaction, something happened. So if you are responsible for some coins or some like code parts, you also look into that regularly to see like if anything like weird happens, and we tag each other. So like sometimes your day gets interrupted by those kind of things, and I think that's a difference because it's like real people using the code like every day, right? So it's not like as theoretical as data science where you like have like months to shape it and then like just push it out and then it's kind of done. And like right, it's this gives you live user feedback, so people will complain immediately. We also have like on call like times where we like are on call for over the night work. If there's like anything like crashing, we have to be there also at night, and we have like good schedule for that. It works actually very, very well because we are a lot of like good people now in that space. So yeah, this comes on top. Not only the 9 to 5 sometimes. Um, so yeah, you notice this like live aspect is like something that like comes into it. And yeah, we use Python. A lot of other teams use Rust, I know, for this stuff. Basically, you use a language that's good with like talking to a lot of APIs. And like this, the speed also, like we've discussed this a bunch, is not so important in that area, ironically, just because like you call a node and like it responds in like a second if you're happy. So it doesn't really matter if your code runs in 50 milliseconds or like 60 or 100. So that part then is like trivial. So we use Python because for those, yeah, a lot of calls features, it's super practical.
So someone could apply to Bitpanda as a blockchain engineer, knowing just Python.
Yeah, yeah.
Awesome. And then
Yeah, it's I also didn't know that before, and that's why it also took me a long time to switch into the field because like I was a data scientist, right? I knew Python and R and a bit of MATLAB, and but yeah, here we use Python, and I never really saw the reason to switch to something else. Like we are like sometimes discussing stuff like that, but yeah, in other fields like in data science, it makes all the sense in the world to make the fast things in like a performant language. But here it's all about it's different things that matter. And also your library is sometimes from different teams, so that also comes on top. They are mostly like Python, I would say, or like C++ maybe. or Go. We also see some Go libraries, but everything works in Python, so it's universal enough to use all of
Fair
them. So
enough. Yeah, I mean, I don't see MATLAB being used in your field very much, I suppose.
I don't think it's gonna happen. No.
You mentioned, you mentioned a few times like the secure. Obviously, right? Security is super important, and you can, bugs can lead to like lost money, and like anytime you have a user bug or like anytime you have an app bug, like it doesn't have to be in the world of crypto. Let's say it's like for Facebook. If there's a like if a dev puts out as a
Mhm.
feature and there's a bug where ads don't show, there's a loss of money. But it feels like in banking or in crypto where it's like you're not losing money because something is happening. Like you're losing the money directly. So the question is there like a lot
Mhm.
of pressure to like not screw it up? Like is this basically like is there a bit of a high pressure job because like the stakes are fairly high? You're helping move money around, and if you mess it up, like losing 10 or 15 bitcoins, well, like a year ago was worth a lot.
Yeah, would suck. Would suck. Yeah. No, so like at least like since I there we haven't lost anything, so that's like very like good. So maybe that's why I don't feel the pressure so much. I feel like we have a very good setup. Also, like right, I think all the exchanges, centralized exchanges, do that. Like in decentralized exchange, you have the problem. All the funds are in a smart contract, so basically all the funds are hot in a way. And like if somebody steals something, they steal it all. Like there's no limits. They will never steal like 5% of what you have. But like in a centralized exchange, that's what you do, right? You separate them into like different wallets. You have like never everything on hot. There's like a limited amount of liability that's like that could get stolen if there's a hack or something. But like the majority of the funds are like in deep cold storage, and like they will only get moved if the other one is empty, and there's a process for that. So like this makes the exposure already like a lot smaller. And I think that's why the security, like, of course, it still has to be super high because you handle other people's funds, but like, it's not like you will definitely lose everything, like in a smart contract, if this is faulty. So like, from the when you need audits and so on, like I think that's much harder in like a smart contract world than in a centralized exchange world. We don't audit everything; it just doesn't make sense. We make more sure that the security protocols are good, so you manage risk a bit different. And I, at least I haven't like felt like too stressed about it. But of course, like if you really fuck up, you can lose your job in this field. Like if you lose like a lot of money, because then um and if it was negligent, so yeah, you have to tread slow sometimes, and like be sure you know what you're doing, rather than just hastily doing
Right.
something.
No moving fast and breaking things. So
Yeah.
you stayed a year at Bitpanda, and then I think within a year you moved on to tech lead. How has your role changed since then? Like, what is a tech lead? You mentioned a little bit architecture design or reviews, but like, what are you doing more of? What are you doing less of? And like, do you manage people directly as a tech lead?
So there was like right, we always talked about those progression paths, and like we are like a normal tech company, and like I was more on the side of like I still want to program and like be actually involved in the code, and not just like it's like two career paths, right? Like not tell people uh like talk salary negotiations and so on. So no, I don't have direct like repartees in that regard, but like we are basically separated in two teams that have like various like big projects, and like that's what I'm trying to manage, like with the like I think we're now 11 people in my team, with like all of them we're trying to mention. The projects they look like, right, is integrating new coins, but also rewriting a lot of things. Also like I think especially in my role, I'm trying to also like be a bit involved in like strategy in the areas, because that's the irony, right? We are also like the people that see stuff first and that they understand stuff very deeply. So we can easier suggest, okay, hey, how about we do like this, and this becomes basically like the next product or the next like integration. Or we say like, okay, we can abstract like this whole bit of code, and like so it works for like not only this chain but also like for those other 11 chains. And even though if they weren't on the roadmap, like now we made it like super easy like to just configure other chains, that are that's like an Ethereum example, right? There's a lot of Ethereum like chains. They work very much the same. So we are like working on those abstractions more to make our also the like addition like for us easier. And you like only can do that once you learn a bit like okay, now like how the present looks like, of course, like with Ethereum, but also how the like future in the space looks like when you think like, okay, this concept is like used by a lot of like new chains that are coming up. So let's abstract it more. And then if you have a general abstraction, then like adding a new chain, like in the best case, it's just adding some configurations in the end, and like very little code. And it also makes you more secure, right? Because you don't need you've gone through the like security thoughts like for one chain, so now you have basically adapted it and it works for the same other chain as well. You just have to think of the like confirmations and like other stuff for it, but it's already good if you can reuse code. So yeah, a lot of things we're doing there is in that regard. And we've also come up with a new concept for users, which we'll make a blog post about soon, about like how we use like generate addresses for them, which I think is a very cool concept, because I think the other exchanges don't have it yet. But like, yeah, won't spoil it here. And yeah, those kind of ideas also, right? They come from me being from we had conferences and the topics, and like from the other tech lead. So like that's also like something where we build ourselves into strategy and then like try to make the team do it for
Okay.
collaborate.
And you've been a
On
tech lead
topics.
for almost a year, no?
Yeah, it was like sometimes
I think
beginning of the
so.
year, yes. But it was kind of this gradual like move towards like okay, got involved more and more in those topics in the company, and then you give them they gave me the title basically, but I felt like it wasn't like an immediate switch that like got
Okay. And
turned.
so like let's imagine there's like blockchain developers that are listening to this and they're like, all right, I'm listening to what a tech lead does, and that sounds really interesting. Like, how do I make the steps? Like, how do I take the steps necessary to take my career in that direction?
So I think like right for us at least in the space, it's very much the knowledge. At least for me, or let's say for me, like it's very much the knowledge I have from the 10 years before, which is like a long time, or like 8 years before since I started. Because I can apply like a lot of this now, and I've been like I looked into a lot of cryptocurrencies over the time, like everybody did. Even though I'm still mostly like a Bitcoiner by heart, and I still like Bitcoin the most, but that makes me like I hope understand like how the like um, yeah the different currencies work, because I've looked into a lot of them, and like once you understand like how they work or how like the visions are behind the coins, you also understand like okay, we can build it like that because I know where they want to go, and like if we build it at something different, then we have to change everything. Um, and this is like I think my like advantage. The other tech lead, I think he is even more in the engineering side, so he's worked at the company like for much longer. So like the paths are a bit different, and like for him, it's also more re-engineering our system. So like it really even like our job titles are the same. Like a lot of like roles that we split up where we're good at. Um, and like yeah, for him it's also this like re-engineering, like that our system is like set up for the future, um, which is like another very cool part. So like again, it comes back to the first thing I said with the data science roles not being very specific. Also here, it's a very open field. We see companies that haven't existed like 3 months ago, like raising a lot because like a coin changed because the Ethereum did the merge. Now there's a lot of like companies just doing that, and now you have to adapt to that. And so it's still a very fast changing field, and like saying like there's this one path, it's like
That's fair.
very
No,
hard.
that's fair.
Interest always helps, right? If you're like very interested in the topic, that people realize that. I feel
Agreed.
that
I
this
think there's
helps.
at least I think a lot of the advice would be similar, and it's what I noticed going from data scientist to data science manager. Right? There's a lot of it's a very much the same. There's like this is this idea of strategy and vision, and to do that, you have to link these different ideas, and you can do it from the business side, you can do it from the tech side, um, but yeah, it or
Or
both.
both. Yeah, it's always sometimes a mix. I look at our AWS cost as well as I look at our like architecture, And so I'm trying to myself get deeper into the architecture part, also to understand it better. But there's just people, like, you also have to be honest, right? They have done that much longer, but I don't have to do everything. We have great people that can do those things, and yeah, just listen to them, listen to whoever is the
Fair enough. Do
expert.
you miss coding at all?
I still code, so I do miss it sometimes. So I also don't code every day. But I do still contribute code, especially when it comes to topics that like I feel like I understand like very much, and I think I wanna like deliver how I want to do them. But more I'm shifting towards like instead of writing code, like reviewing merge requests of other people and like giving feedback. Um, so I'm getting more and more in that direction and seeing like, okay, have you thought of this scenario? Why don't we have like, we talked about error messages a lot, like last week at least. So why don't we do like errors differently here and like not as broad? And so then you get into the more general engineering side as well. Um, yeah, but it's fun. It's fun because it's like very versatile, right? I have like this. I code a little, I lead a little, I architect a little. So I'm like all over the place, and I'm trying to learn more about the area. That's a lot of the things that I want to bring into the company, to like not only get the blockchain team involved, but like to get like we have 700 people in the company, as you mentioned, and like not everybody has this blockchain exposure. So I'm really trying also to push it like to other people. Like if something new cool is happening in the company, not that they have to join the area, right? But they have to be curious about the field. It's an interesting field, and I kind of still want to push the idea. Like that's the kind of the Bitcoin Austria mission, right? That comes through like just educating people. Like that's the point. It's
No,
cool
fair enough. That's
technology. So.
awesome. That like the role sounds really great. Like the role of a tech lead. At least yours in Bitpanda does. So to kind of pivot a little bit the questions, like crypto goes some like is extremely volatile, right? Both kind of in the micro and in the macro. So like, but really it goes for some really high highs and some really low lows. Like, what is it like working in such an environment?
Yeah, at the moment you're at like it's going lower lows phase. It's very weird. Even right, a lot of communication from other exchanges, at least right now, happens on Twitter, and there's like Twitter drama. Like oh, there was like the Celsius bankruptcy, the Free AC bankruptcy recently. Like big funds and like companies even in the area that sometimes did like shady stuff, sometimes just did like bad calculations. So it's like it's tough. I've seen it like from the outside. Since 2013, we had two of those big crashes. In 2013, when I kind of joined, and then in 2017. Then now, the difference now is I feel like at least it's not only crypto. It's like at least it sounds weird, but like it's kind of the whole tech industry that's like crashing, and like it's everybody's talking about the recession. So like you don't feel as singled out. Also in the media, you're not as singled out as like oh no, it's Bitcoin crashing. No, it's like everything crashing and Bitcoin too. Um, so it feels a bit different, and I feel like we as a company, but like I don't have the insights right, but I feel we are like. Doing pretty well because we're on the like conservative side here. We're not like a smart contract DeFi protocol that just got hacked and those like very out there like ideas sometimes. So from that perspective, I'm very confident. We're also not like the big traders that like lost money because they now miscalculated this like big drop and like took too much risk. So we also don't have that. We are a bit more on the traditional side. We still had to let people go. Like there were like a lot of layoffs in like spring in the company, which sucks. We were like over 1,000 people. Now we're 700. So it also affects us. Definitely also affected the mood a bit in the company. But like at least in the area, the spirit is still like really alive and there, and people are not like unhappy, I feel. And I also see that very much. So even though like Ethereum was at $6,000 and it's now at like $1,500, I was just came back from Ethereum DevCon in Bogota, so I went back to my roots for the conference, and there were thousands of people. Like we just tried to look it up before. I think it was like 4,000 and like so many tracks. I think there was like 9 stages in total that were streamed live the whole time for like basically a week, because there were like before and after events and like hackathons before and after. And like that really shows, like, right, a lot of developers, they really don't care. Like there's like nobody cares about price. I've never heard about price there. So like the area at least is very alive and well. And also after this I'm going to a Bitcoin conference, like which is also like, there are a lot of Bitcoin conferences around the world at the moment. So like even those people, right, the tech people like this, they really stick around. And like I really like to see that, because that was not the case in 2013. Like nobody cared after that job. And I feel now we're at least in a phase where everybody agrees that okay, the area is here to stay. Now the and people have like real jobs in there, right? And they care about it, like whatever the price is. And that's still very good to see. So I'm pretty optimistic still about the area. But in general, if we all have to dive through a long recession now with tech, then like of course it's also going to look bad in this area. But generally,
Yeah,
I'm very
I think you
optimistic.
mentioned something interesting. It's true that I think in the 2017 crash, maybe the one that I'm aware of, at least the 2013 one. I remember, like, I think it was for a lot of people, it was their first kind of crypto winter, and there was, I think, a lot of doubt, like maybe not from you, but from others, like does this bounce back up, or like it's not like has the bubble popped? It's like, okay, we all realize that like we don't need silly magic internet points. Um, and I think now it's kind of what you're saying, actually. Yeah, crypto's down, but so's the rest of the market. Like, so are pretty much all tech markets. And I don't think anyone has a doubt that crypto is here to stay. Like, the size of the market is still questionable, but for sure it's here to stay. Um,
And the thing is also like, right, it's very much also in 2017 it depended on how, what kind of investor and person you were. Like if you were into a lot of like weird like random coins in back then you lost probably everything, or like a lot, let's be honest. If you just held Bitcoin, like you were fine, like you bounce back. So it really depends, right? Like, do you have something of long lasting value, or do you have something that only is here because of the hype? And I think we'll see that again, right? We'll see that again. Like a lot of like things die down completely in this like bear market, and like kind of not go bankrupt. That's the weirdest thing, right? People like the tokens stay around, but like they are emotionally bankrupt, or like not actually, like there are no more people building on them. Um, and I think this will happen again. So that's also like the cautionary thing from me. It's like, okay, look at the bigger project. There has a reason that they are there, and like don't gamble away all your savings in like a hype phase and like very small like ideas. I mean, they can like make more money right now, but like they are often, or like at least in the last 2 times, they were not a good long term strategy to have. So like if you really want to be this angel investor, like just know that like the chance that you lose it all is like very
no,
high.
that's fair. So maybe just a few questions around, like, again, maybe just to focus more back on the career aspect. So you switched, we met doing the master's in data science, and then you transitioned from data science to blockchain dev. Obviously, you had the blockchain knowledge, but that I'm aware of, you didn't have software engineering experience, right? So how did you make that jump?
So basically with my like data science roles, right, they also became like, I think the last one I had, like with a very cool startup. Also, we were not so many people, so you also had to do a lot of engineering work, right? It wasn't just about the data, so it was also like the data cleaning and everything before, and like kind of the building the pipelines. And then I built some Slack bots and based on some data. And then you get more into this like general engineering field. And so I got kind of better and better in that, just because my tasks were that. And then I built like some whole projects out. And then basically, yeah, the last pipeline was like the data part, but like everything else was way more work. And so I kind of transitioned like in my job towards more and more an engineering thing. And I felt like that's what I want to learn more. And um, it was also, I think, also from the materials, right? It's sometimes a bit easier to understand. I feel like those general engineering topics than like the data science things. So like we discussed, like the data science is kind of the end like goal sometimes, especially in small startups. It's like the end, but if you don't have like an engineering department for data engineering, you still have to do it. So then you get into like basically doing the whole pipeline. And if you do the whole pipeline right, then you learn it all. And this also feels very much what we do right now in this company, that like, right, we have our own AWS environment. We build the nodes in, we do like the backend setup, we manage Kubernetes in a bit. So I'm learning about a lot of areas that are just like standard engineering things. And then like on top is like the blockchain knowledge. And so yeah, you become a better engineer just by like doing those projects. And I think it was also very much my job, right? I think if I would have done data science in a big company, then it would have been more compartmentalized. And then I probably would have just seen this through like one part. But because I was in like a smaller startup, it's like you see a bit broader, which has like benefits and like disadvantages. Because if you want to do the just data science career, then it's probably the
Oh, I agree. I
harder
think in
path
a
to
big
take.
tech
Yeah.
company, I mean, I've only had experience there doing data science. Yeah, you're rarely exposed to the engineering side, but just because there are engineering teams that'll do it for you faster, you probably don't even have the permissions to do some of these things. Um,
Yeah,
and so, you did the transition from, so like you knew the blockchain world, you knew crypto, and then you kind of picked up the dev, and then boom, blockchain developer. But could you have, what about people that are like, do you hire people that are like solid engineers that don't know anything about crypto?
definitely. Yeah, definitely. Like if you're interested, we've hired like people basically like read what we need, and we really hired a lot of people. So when I joined, also there to realize that like when I joined, I think the area had like 3-4 people more or less, and we like even had like another part of the company like inside, and then we split it off, and now we're like 30 people in that split off part. So like we grew a lot like in the area, and we hired a lot of people. And I also did some interviews because there was like jobs before I have like a business degree, so like it also fit very well. And yeah, we definitely hired people that were interested in the blockchain side, but were good engineers with like Python experience. Like there was a definite overlap. I always ask the blockchain questions in the interviews, so like try to gain a bit like out of like at least if they prepared, right? If they prepared, if they show general interest, like a genuine interest in the topics, that's what I want to get out of people. And not if they like have seen two buzzwords, right? You can also see two buzzwords and then they give me them to like the first recruiter, but with me you will probably fail. So then I'm going to like pinch you on it. But it also depends, right? It's also like with all companies, if there's like a huge hiring wave and you have a lot of people like to hire, then you can like probably easier search and like place people like with their skills. Right now in this like down market, it's probably even a bit harder. So then we would, I guess, search like even more specific for like something that we're missing, right? So one secret tip for hiring in that area is like, right, we deal with a lot of coins, and if you come in and say like, oh, this like I don't know, seventh biggest coin, like I really know a lot about it, and especially because like not most people know about like the first few, then we are like, oh yeah, okay, yeah, now it's interesting. Now we're
Fair enough.
talking.
That's actually really good advice. But yeah, you're right. Kind of in the down market, resources become scarce. So yeah, you want to stretch them more, and you can take less chances. We're starting to run the fairly tight on time. So maybe one last question. What differentiates like a good
Yes.
blockchain eng from a great one?
Yeah, I think a lot of it is interest in understanding what they're doing. So like if you're a good engineer, right, you understand like how to make stuff efficient, how to make like even the um, like the whole code around it, but you have to understand like how like what the coin can do sometimes, and sometimes like to come up with the cool ideas let's say like that, or with the blockchain based ones, you need to understand like the coin. And we did some of those um like I feel like interesting things like on Ethereum, right? We have a smart contract for deposits, so we're working on that like and now, and like changed it a bit. And there you really have to understand, okay, so does this, especially when you handle smart contracts, so does this cause us any, can it cause us any harm? Like is there any security issues? Like what are we exposing ourselves to, and what are the consequences? Like when can we accept it? So how does, and then we got very much deep into like how do smart contracts even like work? Like how do they generate the addresses at the end if you deploy one? Like how is that calculated? And that might not even be necessary for some things, but now it actually really helped us in like this one project. And I think that's kind of cool, right? Because now you're becoming more and more this Ethereum expert where you go like, okay, how does the EVM calculate this? And like, why is this the outcome? Is this like a problem? And I think that's what really good people like they at least care about it, right? Like they are passionate. Like I have we did this one project recently, and we have some people that like really find a lot of bugs in like those things, or like kind of go like, wait, this is like this looks like off, or like this could be exploited somehow. And of course that's always very good if they like come up with those things before uh, anybody else, because they have the interest, right? You usually don't find it if you just like are a good engineer, because then you don't know how the coin works. But if you really know how the coin works and go like, oh yeah, we have to pay attention there, we can't do this, or there's a new function, and if they call this, like we could misinterpret it. So I think yeah, this like general passion for the area is definitely will make you better. Um, and yeah, we've seen that also with people like I feel that's also what I've learned. Like, right, people that have done this the first time, like they might like it also as a job, but maybe they switch to something else afterwards. But like I think right now everybody actually that switched from us switched like back to the area, so they love the area. But if you go if you hire people that were already in the area, then you know sometimes okay, right, they already like showed that passion and like they can apply it again, and like yeah, that has worked also very well for us. So like there aren't that many people that have worked in the area before the like last boom, and but hiring from that like was also very good for us. If people want to switch to us, was worked very well
All right.
for the company, I think.
No, but I feel like we've barely
Long
scratched the
answer.
surface. Like I'm going to cut it for time because otherwise I think this could be 2 hours easily, and this is not the next Joe Rogan podcast.
Lex
I
Friedman did
saw
like
that.
seven,
I
eight
saw the time
hours,
and I was
right?
like,
Like,
nope. But yeah, no, thank you so much for coming. Like, where
largely.
can people follow you on social? Are you on social media?
Yeah, so I'm on Elon Musk's Twitter, if you have heard about that. So you can follow me there with Pichler Day, which is like my last name and my first letter of my first name. This is mostly also very engaged with like the crypto community, I would say. I'm also on like Reddit, but you don't really follow anybody there. So like I'm more like a lurker. So yeah, even if you have like some things, people have DM'd me on Twitter. My DMs are also open. So if you have some questions, feel free. And I even read the spam box sometimes. So if you fall in there, might take a bit longer, but
Yeah, Daniel, thank you so much for coming.
sure. Thanks, Remy. It was fun.